The soft chime of caravan bells drifts across the golden dunes of Elsweyr, a melody as old as the sands themselves. Can you hear it? That faint, rhythmic sound carries the whispers of 1,000 journeys, of Khajiit traders who have braved the scorching sun and treacherous paths to keep their people thriving. Tonight, we're stepping into the footsteps of Rissade, a caravan leader whose every decision weighs heavy with the fate of his clan. His amber eyes, sharp as the desert stars, scan the horizon, not just for danger, but for opportunity. Because in Elsweyr, the line between survival and legend is as thin as a moonlit shadow. Where are you listening from right now? And what time does your own journey into this tale begin? Let us know in the comments. We'd love to wander this path together. Picture the heat rising from the sands, the scent of spice and sweat mingling in the air as Rissade tightens his silken headscarf against the wind. This isn't just a trade route, it's a lifeline. Every step his caravan takes through the Tenmar Forest is a gamble, one that could bring rare moon sugar to his people or leave them facing hunger's cruel grip. The forest hums with unseen dangers, bandits lurking like shadows, roots that twist like serpents underfoot, and the ever-present thirst for profit that drives even the most honorable Khajiit to the edge. But Rissade knows the true cost of hesitation. His people don't just trade goods, they trade hope. And tonight, that hope hinges on a path no caravan has dared to take before. This is more than a journey across land. It's a dance with destiny. The Khajiit caravans don't just carry wares, they carry stories, traditions, and the unbreakable spirit of a people who have turned the desert's harshness into art. As we follow Rissade's path, we'll uncover the secrets of Elsweyr's trade routes, the whispers of old contracts sealed under twin moons, and the delicate balance between risk and reward that keeps the caravans moving. So settle in, traveler, whether it's dawn or dusk where you are, whether you're here for the lore or the lull of the narrative, you're about to step into a world where every breeze carries a secret, and every shadow hides a tale waiting to be told. The dunes are calling, and the journey begins now. The twin moons cast their silver glow over the gathered caravan, painting the sand with shifting patterns of light and shadow. Rissade stands at the center, his tail flicking with quiet intensity as he surveys his people, the muscle-bound warriors sharpening their claws, the merchants securing bundles of moon sugar beneath oiled cloth, the wizened storytellers murmuring prophecies into the wind. His voice, warm yet edged with authority, cuts through the night. Marandru Joe, he calls, tossing a scroll of worn parchment to the lithe scout. The dune of whispering graves hides its traps well. Let no shadow catch your paws unready. The Khajiit bows, his amber eyes gleaming with the thrill of the hunt, before melting into the darkness ahead. Near the restless senche-tigers, Darjashi moves with practiced ease, rubbing fermented hare's blood into their gums to keep them docile for travel. The great beasts purr like distant thunder, their fur bristling at the scent of a coming storm. But the quietest stir comes from Jackagiot, the young scribe, clutching her inkpot like a holy relic. Her claws tremble as she presents Rissade with a half-finished poem, lines praising the caravan's courage. The old trader's ears twitch. He's buried too many hopeful souls beneath the dunes to welcome another. Yet when Jackagiot whispers, "Let my words be the torch that guides others home," something in her voice, The same stubborn fire that once burned in his own mother makes him grunt approval. Stay behind, Darjashi, he warns, and if the sand turns red, you run. No sooner do the first carts creak forward than the wind carries troubling news. A scout returns, his fur matted with salt sweat, to speak of broken water casks along the usual path. Sabotage, too clean to be chance. Rissade's whiskers stiffen. The rival caravan of Shaza knows these sands as well as he does, and their leader has claws longer than her patience. But to divert now means risking the Tenmar's choking vines or the bandit king's tolls. The warriors tense, awaiting orders, while the merchants exchange weighted glances. Every delay bleeds coin, every gamble could bury them. Rissade exhales slowly, tasting the metallic hint of coming rain. We press on, he decides, but Marandru leads us through the valley of waning light. Let Shaza's spies chew on empty dunes. As the caravan plunges into the night, the scribe's quill scratches furiously, capturing the way Rissade's shoulders never slump. How a leader's resolve can bend the desert itself to his will. Or so the legend will one day claim. For now, there are only paw prints sinking into the sand, each one a silent bet against the hunger of the wilds. The Tenmar Forest swallows the caravan whole, its towering canopy weaving a cathedral of shadows and light. Bioluminescent fungi pulse along the path like embers scattered by some ancient god, casting eerie blue halos around Jackagiot's awestruck face. It's like walking through the sky. She breathes, reaching to touch a glowing cluster, until Rissade's growl freezes her claws mid-air. His ears pivot toward the underbrush, where the rustling doesn't match the wind's rhythm. Too heavy, too deliberate. The first arrow shatters the silence, thudding into a cart's wooden frame with a sickening crack. Shields, Rissade bellows, as Dunmer mercenaries spill from the foliage, their ash-gray faces twisted with cold efficiency. Moonlight glints off their daggers. Shaza's work, no doubt. Marandru is already a blur of tawny fur, vaulting into the branches above. His claws rake a bowman's wrist, sending the weapon clattering down to where Darjashi's senche-tigers roar, their chains straining. Jackagiot stumbles back as her precious scrolls skid across the moss, ink bleeding into the earth. A mercenary lunges, his rope net whistling toward her, until instinct takes over. Her claws close around a fallen dagger, its weight foreign yet steady. With a cry more desperation than fury, she slashes upward. The rope snaps. The Dunmer crashes into a thicket of glowing mushrooms, their eerie light dappling his stunned face. Silence falls like a dropped cloak. The surviving mercenaries melt back into the forest, their retreat as disciplined as their ambush. Rissade surveys the scattered belongings, the shallow wounds, the way Jackagiot's breath comes in ragged gulps. He says nothing, no praise, no scorn, but when the scribe reaches for her ruined poems, her claws brush against his, just for a heartbeat, as he helps gather the torn parchment. The oldest Khajiit proverb whispers through the trees. The softest paw still leaves a mark. The caravan moves on, deeper into the Tenmar's embrace. But Jackagiot keeps glancing at her claws, stained with sap and something darker. Violence may not be the Khajiit way, but tonight, the forest taught her this. Even scholars must learn the weight of a blade, and the cost of survival when the moons turn their backs. The humid air of Riverhold clings to Rissade's fur as he strides toward the Argonian trader's stall. His paws, kicking up little puffs of dust from the worn wooden docks. The lizard folk merchant, scales glistening with river mist, eyes the offered moon sugar with suspicion, his forked tongue flicking out to taste the tension. Your sugar is strong, he admits, claws tapping a hollow rhythm on his chest. But what does this one truly know of its making? Stories hold more weight than gold in these waters. Before Rissade can reply, Jackagiot steps forward, her torn scrolls clutched tight. Her voice, usually so timid, rises like desert wind through canyon stones as she paints the night sky with words. How the Khajiit see not just constellations, but the great senche-tiger lurk, Haj chasing the twin moons across the heavens. The Argonian's slit pupils dilate as she describes the sugar god's first harvest, when the heavens wept sweet tears onto the dunes. Dockworkers pause their labor. Even the river seems to hush. Your tales are unexpected fruit. The trader murmurs, already reaching for his seal. Then the spell shatters. Zairei's mocking laughter cuts through the crowd as she slinks forward, her golden piercings glinting like a challenge. Rissade the thief still wears my father's routes like stolen jewelry. Her tail lashes as she throws a tattered map at his feet, ink faded but markings unmistakable. The Argonian hisses, retreating behind his wares. Rissade's claws flex. This ambush reeks of Shaza's meddling. He could fight. His warriors outnumber Zairei's, but blood on the docks would sour every deal from here to Cench. Instead, he flicks an ear toward the northern horizon, where the dune's spires claw at the sky. Let the sand settle this, he purrs, whose caravan kneels before the dune's altar by next moonrise, keeps the routes. The loser pays a tenth of their haul in tribute. Zairei's smirk doesn't reach her eyes as she spits in her palm. The deal is struck, but as Jackagiot watches Rissade turn away, she notices how his shoulder fur lies flat, too relaxed. The old fox hasn't shown his teeth yet. Somewhere in the Tenmar's depths, Mercenaries is already running ahead, his paws silent on forgotten paths. The real game begins now. Dawn cracks across the Elsweyr desert like a whip, painting the dunes in molten gold as the caravans surge forward, Rissade's sleek-pawed runners against Zairei's armored carts. The wind carries the scent of scorched earth and something sharper, desperation. Sand rears up without warning, a wall of grit howling down from the north, forcing Rissade's band to swerve toward the skeletal remains of a crumbling temple. Its pillars jut from the sand like broken teeth, guardians of secrets better left buried. Jackagiot's claws trace the carvings inside, her breath hitching as moonlight slants through cracks in the stone, illuminating symbols older than the Khajiit's feud with the sands. These aren't just ruins, she murmurs, ink-stained fingers trembling. They're a ledger, a map to Oasis the dunes swallowed centuries ago. The warriors exchange glances. Water means power, and power in the Elsweyr is currency sharper than steel. But the walls have ears. A pebble clatters in the darkness beyond the torchlight. Zairei's spies slink closer, their shadows stretching long and lean across the stone. Rissade's tail lashes once, decisive. Mercenaries takes the swiftest south with half the cargo. He orders, the rest guard this place like it's the last drop in the world. Jackagiot's chest tightens as she watches the chosen ones vanish into the storm. Duty demands she stay, protect the secret with her life. But the carvings whisper of history's erased, of a truth that could rewrite the caravan's futures. Her inkpot weighs heavy in her palm, Then, inspiration strikes like a desert viper. Fingers flying, she smears black streaks across the tunnel's mouth, mimicking the look of collapsed stone. The approaching footsteps halt. Muffled curses rise as Zairei's thugs retreat, deceived by shadows and a scribe's quick thinking. The ruse works, but victory tastes bitter. Jackagiot stares at her stained claws, the ink now indistinguishable from blood in the dim light. The dunes hiss around her, carrying echoes of older deceptions, older betrayals. Was this cunning or cowardice? The line between them blurs like mirages on the horizon. Outside, the storm rages on, but the real tempest brews in the scribe's heart. Every Khajiit knows the proverb, the sand remembers what the paw forgets. And tonight, the sand has witnessed something new, not just a map, not just a trick, but the moment a scholar learned that even ink can be a weapon when the moons go dark. The scent of crushed juniper berries hangs thick in the air when the first whimper cuts through the caravan's nighttime murmurs, a sound too small, too broken, to belong to the desert. Darjashi's torchlight reveals the trembling heap of golden fur pressed against a supply crate. A senche-tiger cub, no heavier than a water skin, its ribs stark beneath patchy fluff. One ear is torn, the stink of jackals clings to its pelt. Leave it, Darjashi hisses, fingers twitching toward her whip. Where there's a cub, there's a mother with teeth like scimitars. But Rissade is already crouching, his shadow swallowing the tiny creature. The cub's mismatched eyes, one moonstone blue, the other sunset amber, lock onto his, and suddenly he's 8 winters old again, shivering in the alleys of Torval, while larger kittens stole his bread. Logic screams to walk away. The caravan's safety balances on a knife's edge. Yet when the cub mules, its voice cracking like thin ice, his paw moves on its own, offering a scrap of dried mammoth cheese. We take it, he growls. The mother's roar shakes the stars. She erupts from the darkness in a storm of fangs and fury, her massive body slamming into Merandru Joe before he can draw his dagger. The scout rolls with the impact, deliberately crashing into a stack of empty crates to lead her away wood splinters as the tiger shreds through them like parchment. Rissade doesn't flee, doesn't fight. He scoops up the cub and does the unthinkable. He sings. The lullaby is ancient, a melody Khajiit mothers croon when monsoons rattle the cliffs. His voice wavers at first, rough with disuse, but the cub's ear flicks. The tiger freezes. For 3 heartbeats, the world holds its breath. Then, with a shuddering snort, the great beast pads forward, her nose quivering as she scents her cub in Rissade's arms. The caravan watches, transfixed, as she nuzzles the little one, her growl softening to a rumble that vibrates through the sand. Jackagiot's lute picks up the rhythm, her strings humming the same lullaby, tentative at first, then swelling as the cub's purrs weave into the music. Dawn finds them with unlikely guardians. The mother tiger stalks the caravan's perimeter, her ears pricked for jackals, while the cub dozes atop a spice sack, one tiny paw clutching Rissade's sleeve. But the moment of peace is brittle. On the horizon, crimson fire signals slash the sky. Zairei's doing, no doubt. She's cutting through the salt flats, where the ground is hard and the miles vanish beneath swift wheels. The cub whimpers in its sleep, as if sensing the coming storm. Rissade strokes its ragged ear, his claws catching on a burr. Some bonds, once forged, cannot be undone. And some debts, The desert collects in blood. The oasis shimmers like a mirage, made real, its waters glinting beneath the twin moons as Rissade's caravan staggers into its embrace. Thirsty paws plunge into the shallows, only to recoil as the first warrior gags, clutching his throat. The water reeks of something sickly sweet, a cloying rot that clings to the tongue. Jackagiot drops to her knees, her scholar's instincts overriding fear. Her claws dig into the mud, unearthing the culprit, a cluster of spindly cacti with blooms like bruised flesh. Nirnroot's shadow, she breathes, harmless alone, but brewed with moon sugar. Her voice trails off as the implication sinks in. Only one Khajiit would weaponize their own people's sacred crop. Rissade's snarl sends ripples across the poisoned pool. He could tear through Zairei's camp like a sandstorm, leave her cart splintered and her pride bleeding into the dunes. His warriors tense, claws gleaming until Darjashi steps forward, her tail twitching with the ghost of a smile. Let her choke on her own tricks, she purrs, plucking a venomous blossom. That night, the camp erupts in staged chaos. Merchants wail about ruined goods. Scouts, accidentally, let Zairei's spies overhear plans to retreat through the Bandit King's Pass. And Jackagiot, her ink-stained paws trembling, pens a forged letter detailing a mythical shortcut, a canyon lined with untapped moon sugar veins. Dawn finds Zairei's carts veering north, her laughter sharp as she follows the lies like breadcrumbs. The trap snaps shut at high noon when her triumphant shouts echo against canyon walls that narrow into impassable stone. No water, no sugar, only the relentless sun and the dawning horror in her eyes as she realizes she's been outfoxed. Back at the oasis, Rissade watches his people drink deep from freshly dug wells. Victory should taste sweeter, but as Jackagiot burns the last of the poisoned plants, her gaze heavy with unspoken questions, he feels the weight of the trick like a stone in his gut. Khajiit proverbs whisper of honor, sharpened on truth's edge, yet the canyon walls don't care which paws they cage. The moons rise, their light painting the dunes silver, impartial witnesses to the choices that will haunt this caravan long after the sand swallows their footprints. The bridge groans beneath their paws, its ancient ropes fraying like the nerves of the caravan. Jackagiot's breath comes in shallow gasps as she stares into the chasm below, where jagged rocks yawn like teeth hungry for missteps. Her claws dig into the splintered wood, but her body refuses to move, frozen not by fear of falling, but by the crushing weight of what could be lost. Rissade's paw lands on her shoulder, calloused and warm. Listen, he murmurs, his voice barely louder than the wind whistling through the canyon. Walk as if the wind guides you. Step where it pushes, rest where it stills. The old mantra, passed down from caravan masters to their apprentices, wraps around her like a lifeline. She takes the first step, then another. The bridge sways, but the rhythm of Rissade's voice steadies her, until the sharp crack of snapping wood splits the air. A wagon lurches sideways, one wheel spinning uselessly over the abyss. Darjashi doesn't hesitate. She leaps, muscles straining as she grips the axle, her boots skidding against the crumbling edge. For a heartbeat, the entire caravan holds its breath, then with a roar that echoes off the cliffs, she heaves the wagon back onto solid ground. Spices scatter like fallen stars. Rissade's eyes lock onto the torn harness, the trembling mules, the way Darjashi's arms shake long after the danger has passed. His gaze sweeps over his people, the warriors gripping their weapons too tight, the merchants clutching their wares, Jackagiot's ink-stained claws still curled around the bridge ropes. Without a word, he strides to the lead cart and flings open a chest. Silks the color of desert sunsets billow in the wind as he hurls them into the void. The gasp from his clan is sharper than the drop below. We carry only what the land allows, he growls, tossing another bundle into the abyss. The silks flutter down, painting the rocks with fleeting beauty. Behind them, Zairei's caravan halts on the opposite cliff. Her mocking shout dies in her throat as she watches Rissade sacrifice a fortune without blinking. Her tail flicks once, a gesture too measured to be anger, too deliberate to be chance. The rest of the crossing is silent, but for the creak of ropes and the whisper of paws on worn wood. When Jackagiot finally steps onto solid ground, her knees buckle. Rissade catches her, his grip firm. The wind guides, he repeats, but his eyes are on the distant figures of Zairei's scouts, now studying the broken bridge with new calculation. Some lessons aren't taught in words. Some truths, like the weight of a leader's choices, or the way respect can grow from the rubble of pride, are written in the dust between footsteps. The canyon swallows the last of the silk's shimmer, but the caravan moves forward, lighter in more ways than one. The wind doesn't howl, it screams, tearing at the caravan with claws of grit and fury. One moment, the dunes stretch golden under the sun. The next, the sky vanishes behind a wall of swirling sand. Rissade's voice cuts through the chaos, raw with command. Chains now, metal links clank as the Khajiit lock wrists, forming a living tether against the storm's hunger. Jackagiot's claws dig into the iron, her ears flat against her skull, until a whimper, faint as a ghost, threads through the roaring wind. A child, no older than 6 winters, his tawny fur bleached pale with terror, stumbles blindly through the tempest. His tiny paws clutch a torn merchant's banner, the fabric snapping like a wounded bird. The chain trembles as Jackagiot tenses. Rissade's order rings in her ears, hold fast or perish, but the child's cry lodges in her chest, sharper than any storm. Her claws slip free, sand swallows her instantly, 1,000 needles stinging her eyes as she lunges toward the sound. Behind her, Rissade's curse is lost to the gale. Then miraculously, his presence, solid as a cliff face, materializes at her side. They crawl on bellies, following the child's fading sobs until their paws strike stone. The boy clings to a jagged outcrop, his breaths coming in shallow gasps. Rissade yanks him close, shielding him with his body as the storm rages. Then it happens. The wind rips his scarf away, exposing a lattice of old scars across his throat, pale, raised lines that tell a story of ropes and betrayal. The child's sand-crusted paw hovers, trembling. Like my father's, he whispers. Rissade freezes. The words unravel something in him, a memory long buried, himself at that age, trembling in a slaver's cart, those same scars freshly carved. The storm passes as abruptly as it came, leaving the world eerily still. The child curls into Jackagiot's arms, his trust as fragile as the silence. Rissade stares at the horizon, where the dunes stretch endless and indifferent. The spices in his carts, the rival caravans, even Zairei's scheming. it all feels suddenly weightless. That child could have been him, could still be him, in another life. He kneels, pressing his forehead to the boy's. "Your father," he murmurs, he from the dune of whispers. The child's nod is slight, but it ignites a fire in Rissade's chest. That clan was scattered years ago, their routes stolen, their voices silenced. The scars they bore were badges of defiance. Now, cradling this boy, this living fragment of a story he'd thought lost, Ri'saad feels the desert shift beneath his paws. The caravan reforms around them, but the air hums with something new. When Jackagiot meets Rissade's gaze, she sees it too. This is no longer just about outrunning rivals or filling coffers. The sandstorm didn't just test their strength. It exposed the bones of a truth buried deeper than any trade route. Some debts aren't paid in gold. Some roads lead not to profit, but to redemption. As the child sleeps against her shoulder, his tiny claws tangled in her sleeve, Jackagiot watches Rissade stride ahead, his back straighter, his steps surer. The dunes whisper secrets to those who listen, and tonight, for the first time in decades, he's finally hearing them. The spires of dune claw at the twilight sky, their sandstone faces glowing like embers as the rival caravans stagger into the city's shadow. Zairei's carts arrive first, but her triumph reeks of desperation. Her warriors slump against broken axles, their silks torn by sand and spite. The moon sugar crates bear the telltale cracks of reckless speed, their precious contents leaking onto the dunes like wasted dreams. Her lips curl as Rissade's group approaches, their pace measured, their goods intact. The elders of Dune wait atop the wind-chimed steps, their layered robes whispering of centuries weighing such arrivals. Zairei strikes first. This one comes with thieves at her heels. Her voice rings across the square, sharp enough to draw blood. She flings a pouch onto the mosaic tiles, poisoned cactus blooms spilling out like accusations. The crowd murmurs. Rissade doesn't flinch. He nods to Jackagiot, who unrolls a scroll with hands steadier than she feels. The ink depicts Zairei's own scouts, sabotaging the Oasis, their faces clear beneath the twin moons. The sand remembers, Rissade murmurs, and the elders' eyes darken with understanding. The verdict comes swift as a desert viper's strike. Elder Shazier, his beard braided with silver rings, declares the ancient remedy, a joint caravan. Let your people walk as one, he intones, or let your names fade from the routes forever. Zairei's snarl shakes the torches, but then, movement, her second in command, the scarred warrior Vostin, steps forward and bows. Not to her, to the elders. The silence that follows is louder than any storm. Rissade approaches Zairei, close enough to smell the bitterness on her breath. Chase my shadow forever, he offers, or let our clans taste the same water. His paw opens, revealing a single unbroken sugar crystal, the kind traded at treaty signings, when words aren't enough. The wind stills, even the senche-tigers cease their growling. Somewhere in the crowd, the rescued cub whimpers, its tiny claws digging into Darjashi's shoulder. Zairei's fingers twitch. For a heartbeat, the desert itself seems to lean in. Then, with a sound like tearing silk, she snatches the crystal not gently, but not in fury either. The elders exhale. Boston's shoulders relax, and high above, the first stars blink awake, their light weaving a fragile bridge between the past and what might yet be. The lanterns of Dune sway like captured fireflies, their golden light pooling over tables laden with spiced meats and honeyed dates, a feast fit for the twin moons themselves. Jackagiot's voice rises above the clatter of dishes, her tale of Raj, the thief god, spinning through the air like silk, unwinding. She doesn't just recite the epic, she becomes it. Her claws mimic Rajhin's legendary theft of the main's shadow. Her tail flicks like the rogue's escape across rooftops. And when she whispers the final line, even the moons blinked and found their light lighter. The crowd erupts. Zairei's laughter rings clearest, her earlier venom dissolved by Rissade's moon sugar candies, their recipe older than the feuding clans. A Dunmer merchant, his red eyes sharp beneath his hood, leans forward as Jackagiot bows. Your words could fill the vaults of Mournhold, he murmurs, offering a scroll sealed with ebony wax. The apprenticeship would take her across the sea, to libraries where histories are etched in glass and whispered through steam. Her claws tighten around her inkpot, the same one that survived Sandstorms and Sabotage. The caravan is her family, but the scroll smells of lotus blooms and opportunity. Rissade reads her hesitation like a map. Before she can speak, he presses a paw to her forehead, the old blessing gesture. Khajiit walk many paths, he says, his voice rough yet warm. Even the stars must wander to shine. The words unravel the knot in her chest. Across the fire, Zairei watches, her tail twining with unexpected grace around Voston's wrist, a silent pact of their own. Drums surge, their rhythms pulsing like a second heartbeat. Dancers whirl, their silhouettes painting the sandstone walls with fleeting shadows. Yet Rissade slips away, drawn to the cliffs where the sky yawns wide. Below, the desert stretches endless, its secrets buried beneath shifting sands. The road hums beneath his paws, a melody only he can hear. Some journeys end in feasts. Others begin with a single step into the unknown. The stars blink down, indifferent to the choices of mortals, but the wind carries the scent of distant rains and roads untraveled. The first light of dawn paints the sandstone walls of Dune in molten gold, its warmth barely touching the chill night air, still clinging to the caravan's wheels. Rissade checks the harnesses one last time, his claws lingering on the repaired straps, each knot a silent promise to the road ahead. The clatter of hooves breaks the stillness as Zairei's striped senche-tiger pads forward, its breath steaming in the crisp air. She dismounts with a hunter's grace, her amber eyes unreadable in the half-light. Without a word, she presses a dagger into Rissade's paw, its hilt wrapped in leather dyed the deep blue of morning skies. The blade is cool against his palm, its edge honed sharp enough to split a hair, a craftsman's work and an apology sharper still. For 3 heartbeats, the desert holds its breath. Then Rissade turns the weapon, offering it back hilt first, his claws deliberately brushing her wrist in the old way, kin recognizing kin. Zairei's nostrils flare as she takes it, her tail flicking once in acknowledgement. No speeches, no oaths, just the quiet understanding that some roads are better walked together. Behind them, the cub, now sleek with regular meals, pounces on a scrap of fabric, its mismatched eyes gleaming with mischief. Jackagiot stands apart at the city gates, her arms wrapped around her scrolls like armor. The Dunmers offer burns in her satchel, its wax seal gleaming like a trapped star. She watches the caravan stir to life. Dar, Jashi laughing as a warrior, braids juniper berries into her senche-tiger's mane. Marandru Jo, balancing on a cart's edge to adjust a loose spoke, Rissade's steady presence anchoring them all. The wind tugs at her ink-stained sleeves, carrying the scent of salt from distant shores and the sweetness of sugar yet to be traded. Choices, the desert whispers, are never just about destinations. Her claws tighten around her quill. Then, with a shuddering breath, she steps forward, not toward the ship, waiting at the docks, but into the familiar dust of the caravan's wake. The first page of her new scroll lies blank, its surface smooth as untouched sand. Some stories can't be borrowed from library shelves. Some truths must be lived before they are inked. The gates of Dune shrink behind them, their carved faces fading into the morning haze. Ahead, the dunes ripple like a great beast, stirring from sleep, their crests gilded by the rising sun. Rissade doesn't glance back. The road has always been his home, its turns as familiar as the scars on his paws. But today, the wind carries a new note, a harmony, where there was once only a solitary melody. Zairei's voice rises in a trading chant, her warriors joining the refrain. Jackagiot's quill scratches softly, capturing the way the light dances on the cub's fur as it races ahead, a living spark against the endless gold. The desert remembers every footprint, every whispered promise, every heart that dared to beat beneath its twin moons. And somewhere beyond the horizon, where the sky kisses the earth, another chapter waits patient as a coiled serpent, bright as a freshly minted coin. The caravan moves on, its shadows stretching long and lean across the sand, already weaving the next thread in the story. The caravan bells grow faint, their fading chimes swallowed by the endless sea of dunes. Not an ending, but a breath held between verses. Ri'saad runs a claw along his throat, no longer flinching at the ridges of scar tissue. What once marked him as broken now tells a different story. Each line a canyon crossed, each knot of flesh a night outlasted. The wind carries traces of Jackagiot's voice from further down the line, where she teaches the cub to shape its first letters in the sand. The ink staining her paws will never fully fade, and neither will the tales she spins already. Merchants from anvil to sensual whisper of the scribe, who turned poison blooms into poetry. Zairei's laughter rings sharp and clear over the clatter of wheels, her golden piercings catching the light as she tosses a date to Voston. There's no bitterness in the gesture now, only the easy rhythm of shared labor. The rivalries that once carved divisions deeper than riverbeds have softened into something resembling respect, not quite kinship, but close enough to make the road less lonely. And the cub, it dozes atop a sack of moon sugar, one paw curled around Darjashi's whip handle, the other kneading the air as if dreaming of the hunt. Its purr harmonizes with the creak of carts and the distant strum of a lute, a melody woven from fragments of the journey. The twin moons rise, their silver light tracing the caravan's path like a pair of watchful eyes. Elsweyr sands have a way of swallowing footsteps, but not stories. Not the way Marandru Joe still mimes his battle with the senche-tiger for wide-eyed kittens at way stations, or how the elders of Dune now speak of the poisoned Oasis as a parable. The routes remain, yes. Trade must flow, sugar must sweeten distant tongues, but the hands that guide the reins are different. Lighter somehow, though their burdens haven't changed. Somewhere ahead, a new horizon shimmers, its promise written in the language of wind and wandering. The Khajiit walk toward it, not as thieves or rivals or lost souls, but as threads in a tapestry older than memory. The road doesn't end. It simply waits, patient as the dunes, for the next footfall, the next story, the next chord in the song that began when the first caravan left its mark upon the sand.